Okay, we're getting there. I think I hit this. It loads up. Ask me later. Accept. Not now. And this one. Okay, so we got in here. We were dealing with force vectors along a line. And then we were about to enter, which looks like the last section in chapter 2, which is the dot product. So you know what? I'm going to do the dot product, kind of monkey around with it, and then I'm going to go back and start running around in different sections in chapter 2. So where'd the pen go? Oh, here it is. So in this, you know, you've seen the dot product before, haven't you? I mean, I hope you have. So if you've got two vectors, A and B, it's basically okay, so the dark ones are vectors. The light colored ones are links of the vector. And so, you know, say this vector is 5 and this one's 10, then the unbold-faced would be 5 and the unbold-faced would be 10. So it'd be the lengths of those vectors times the cosine of the angle between them. And what I'll do is try to solidify that in a second. But he has different laws here. Communicative law means if you dot A and B or you swap it over B dot A, you get the same thing. The other is a scalar. If you just make A 2 times as large, then the length becomes 2 times as large. And this distributive law is just like multiplication anyway. So you could think of a dot product to behave kind of like a multiplication. And let me kind of, what is that? Oh, here, let me get this little snippet thing up too, because I probably will use it somewhere along. I wish this was a touch screen. Okay, so think about it like this. And we're now, okay, this is January, it's 106. Okay, so think about it kind of like this. Let's say you had a vector. Now I'm going to simplify things. Say you had a vector here that was 4, 3, 5. And say its length was 5. So say it is a length 5. So this vector A, I'll call it A, and I can't make mine boldface. So I have to put a bar across the top of it. So I put a bar across the top of it. You know, the vector A is equal to, in this case, 4i plus 3. Oh, can I write? Oh, it disappears. I don't know how to, here, can I go up? Here. Well, here. Do it this way. 4i plus 3j. Now let's say I had another vector that looked just like this. It was of length 1. So this means B is nothing more than, I could just write I, but I'll write 1 times I. Now, if you look at this, the length of A will be 5. Length of B would be nothing more than 1. So if I'm going to dot A with B, I'll get the length, which since I'm doing it, I can't unboldface and boldface. I have to kind of do it like this. You have 2 vectors, one of them length 5, one of them length 1, and the cosine of the angle, which I guess I'll say between them. So you look at this, and only thing I get is 5 cosine of alpha. Now, if you want to, you can come over here and do this 4, 3, 5, and say that's alpha. Leaning over a little bit here. Uh-oh, what did I just hit? Then the cosine of this alpha, what would that be? Wouldn't that be 4/5? That makes sense. So if you look at that, and this is nothing but 5 times this 4/5, which is nothing but 4. Now, if you look at this thing, that's kind of interesting looking, because that's nothing more than the magnitude in the x direction, which leads me to the next thing that he talks about is this, where's my mouse? The next thing he's talking about is, roll down. He's talking about how to do these in what's a Cartesian vector form. So generally you have a vector that sits here, ax. Okay. Here's your a vector represented in Cartesian form. You know, ax, the component in the xi, ayj, and azk. You have the same thing here. So what he's done is he's done this law where you take this term times that one, plus this term times that one, plus this term times that one. And he lists all those across this first line right here. Then he starts working on the y. And he does it again for the y. So you're taking this one times that one, this one times that one, and you're going through it. What you end up with is in between, you end up with the dot products in here. And if you stare at them for a minute, you'll find out something interesting about those dot products. That being that, here, I think I can, well, oh, come on. It's the oddest thing. We'll give you the right window unless you do that. There you go. Now I can go down. So if you have a vector system like this, okay, right-handed coordinate system always. So if I put this one as x, which one is z? I mean, which one is y? This one or this one? It's right-handed coordinate. Well, so if you're right-handed rule, you take x, you rotate it to y, and your thumb points in the z, that right-handed. So you end up with y and then z. Now that's the cross product stuff, which we hadn't got to that yet, but we're dealing with the dot product here. So I cross j gives you k. That's the right hand. So if I could do, a lot of times you might see something like x. Okay, if you do that, x, take your hands, point out x, cross to y, you get a z. Anyway, we're not using that one. We'll just use this one. So you have an I, a J, and a K. So if you dot I and I, you get the length of I, cosine of the angle between them. That does nothing but give you 1. I dotted with J, the length of I, length of J, cosine of 90, which gives you 0. So the only ones that give you anything but I dot I is equal to J dot J is equal to K dot K. And those are all length 1. All the rest of them are not any length. They're 0 length. So what you see is this is 1. That's 0. This one's 0. That one is 0. 1. 0, 2 more zeros, and then a 1. So what you see down here is this term, which came from here, this term, which came from here, and this term, which came from here. And that's all you get. So really, when you see these two vectors with 3 components, say you have XYZ here and XYZ here, you just multiply these 3 numbers, add them up, and that gives you the value, the dot product. So if I go back, and here I've gone forward, now I'm going to go back. Okay, it's not listening to me. So go forward. Okay, I can move to the side. So if I look at this, A dot B in that form would be 4I plus 3J, which is coming from there, dotted with 1I. So the only thing I get is 4 times 1, or just gives me 4. What it actually is giving me is it's giving me the length of this vector A along that direction. That's what generally, it's easier to see this way. What they will often say is that's what you're getting. You're getting a vector length projected onto another one. Projected in the sense that, say you get 2 vectors like this. Say it's being, a shadow is projected onto the other vector or something like that. That's, you could think of projection being that way. Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I should be able to do that. Yeah. Okay, now if I do this, I'm back here, and this little thingamajig shows up, so I'll just stick it over here, because I never write up there anyway, because I can't get rid of this statics thing. I don't know why it won't go away. I can get rid of everything else. So in fact, that's a form, and the ones that are in blue boxes are, you could think of as being the ones that are important. So you have that one. Here you go. He's talking about if you want to find the angle between them. Oh, how did that happen? Oh, cool. It wasn't doing that earlier. Oh, hey. Okay, so I can write on this. Okay, so now I know how to erase. Do I do that? Oh, look at that. Okay, this is a modern machine here. All right, well, that makes things easier for me. Okay, so if you've got 2 vectors and you have them written in the A and B, now this is going to sound weird. You can find the angle between them. So let me do our case that we had, and then I'll undo our case. And I don't know if I go here, it does go away, and it returns. Okay, so am I, okay. So let's take our 2 vectors up here. Okay, come on. So if I'm looking at these, I found out, you're gonna laugh at me, but that's okay. I found out what these are. So if I'm looking at this as being A dot B is equal to the magnitude of A, magnitude of B, times the cosine of the angle between them. Now, we already found kind of a resemblance of that, but this is a general form. What if we don't know that, and we do know this? From up here, I found that to be 4. From down here, I found that to be 5, and I found that to be 1. So cosine alpha is equal to 4/5. Well, you knew that before, because we talked about that a few seconds ago, but this is a general form. So we talked about that, right? But this is a general form, so I can take the inverse cosine of 4/5 and get it. Okay, so when would that be even more interesting, or more obnoxious, or say we have, since I already have A and B, I'm going to say D is equal to 2I plus 3J. And I'm going to say E is equal to, so here's another vector, 1I plus 2j. So let me see if I can kind of halfway draw these. You got a vector. Okay, let's do E first. I go over 1, 2, and I think that's all I need. 1, 2, and 3. So E would go to the right 1 and up 2. So here's my E. Then D would go to the right 2 and up 3. Ooh, that's going to look weird. So here's D. Now the question is, what's the angle between E and D? Now, you could work around like real crazy and find that, but it's not going to be fun. But if I just dot them like this, I basically multiply the two x components, 2 times 1 plus 2 times 3, which gives me 2 plus 6 or 8. Is that right? Now the question is, I want to know the cosine of the angle between them. So if you look back at the formula, it sits like that. The two vectors dotted divided by their lengths. Okay, go back. The two vectors dotted, which was nothing more than 8, divided by their lengths. Well, here's 2 squared plus 3 squared, and then 1 squared plus 2 squared. Now, I should have done this before. There is a, here. Okay. This is Octave. Did I install that in this class or the other class? Did I talk about Octave before? I did? Okay. So it's kind of the modified version of MATLAB. If you don't want to pay for MATLAB, and you just want to get through the next 2, 3, 4 years of school, just download Octave. And if the only exception to that is you might get into some later courses that require a particular toolbox, then you might want to rely on what we've purchased. But if you have your own computer, laptop, whatever, at your dorm, house, whatever, you can just download it and it would probably be fine until you got to those courses. So in essence, I can just go in and just take arc cosine degree. I want my answers in degrees. 8 divided by a square root of, okay, 2 squared is 4, and 3 squared is 9. Okay. And then divided again by a square root of 5, square root of 5. And it should come out with a 7.12 degrees. Wow. So alpha is 7.12 degrees. That's sort of, look how close they are. I mean, they're almost on top of each other. So that sort of makes sense. So you could find any two vectors with this. You could just dot them and take their lengths and find the magnitude of the angle between them. And that's what he's talking about right here. The other one is, what if you wanted the component of a vector perpendicular to a line? Now, why would you want that? And I can show you with an example. If I walk over to the door, I can sort of pull on the door. Let's imagine I had a rope. I just swung, and maybe there's a hook up here. So I'm pulling on the door in a funny way. But I can pull straight down, and it's not going to open or close the door. But if I start pulling it off to the side, you're going to probably want to be, you'll probably have the door closing. So you might be interested in the component of this force along the line of the hinge, and that component's doing nothing. But then, so if I'm pulling like this, the component that's coming out like this is going to be the part that closes the door. So you might have a hinge. You might want to know the force down that hinge so the hinge doesn't break off, things like that. So that's why you would want a line. So what you would do is you would draw a line down the hinges, and you'd want to know your component of that force along that hinge. So all you're doing is taking a dot product. Now what he is saying, and you have to kind of be, so he's saying, I'm going to say, find a unit vector that goes down the hinge, say, and just point that vector down. Now, in this case, you know, common sense would say, well, X goes this way, Y goes that way, and the Z goes up. And that would be the K. But in fact, it might be a weird vector. The hinge might be coming out funny. So all you're doing is you're taking whatever vector that is, force, and you're dotting it with a direction, gives you that force along that direction. And that's all it does. Okay, is there a way you just hit? Okay. I don't know what that means. So I'll push it and it doesn't go away. How do I make it go away? Oh, it just went away. So if I do this, I guess I got to do every single thing, I guess. And so let's just start working problems. So here he has a force. Okay, the frame is subject to a horizontal force. That's that. You just got to determine the magnitude of the magnitude of the components of this force parallel and perpendicular to member AB. So it looks like that one. So first of all, you would want to find that vector. So you need to find that vector. Then you need to unitize it, so to speak. This is exactly what he does. He comes in, he draws that vector, and he says, okay, he says it's going over 2. Okay, let me do it in components this way. Goes over 2. It comes out 6. So it goes over 2, comes out 6. And you could do it here, but it comes up 3. So he's got this 2, the 6, and then the 3. And then, of course, he divides by the square root of that. That's the length. This becomes a base vector, a unit vector, if you will. Now, you can take this thing and dot it. And so all you would do is F is equal to 300J. Dotted with this vector means you're taking the component 0.857 times 300. So what does he do? 0 times the X component, 300 times the Y, and then nothing times the 4, and he gets the actual value, whatever that is. Oh, as I scroll up, it doesn't scroll up with me. That's going to be weird. But it is tied to this screen. Now what he does is kind of interesting. If you had a vector and it looks like that, and you had the original magnitude, it was 300, so you've got a vector, doesn't matter where it's gone to, it's 300, and then some component of it is 257.1, there may be some other digits. What you end up with, what do you think this other component is? Now, before I say this, let's see. He goes down. He expresses AB in a Cartesian form to have a. Oh, okay. He already does the AB form. Let me get rid of the. Okay, eraser. The N. Okay, here we go. Red. So, in fact, this is essentially what you're doing. You think about it for a minute. This is kind of what I was getting to. There was a little bit of extra in there but if I come back and I realize it's 257, and then there's some other component in which this squared plus that squared, this really should be up here, is equal to 300. You just take 300 minus this, 300 squared minus that squared, and take the square root. That tells you what the other component is. So, so let's go and do one that's and I'll copy it over to OneNote so it'll be stuck there. Let me see, eraser. Okay. Oh. And I guess it just sits. Okay, let's find any old one. What does he say? Determine the angle between the force and the line. Okay, so we could do, sure, let's do that one. I don't know. Let's just start by doing some. That's the best thing to do anyway. When in doubt, do something. Usually it figures itself out from there. New page, drop that thing. Okay, so he wants to know the angle between the force and this line. So what I'm going to do first is, okay. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Draw. Am I not? Oh, let's get this. Okay, there we go. Now let's make sure that this is drawing on one note and not on top of it. How do I get this thing out of here? Okay. Let me go back to here. You know what I need to do is I need to make sure that I'm not drawing on top of this, that it's actually doing it in OneNote. So if you want to, okay, BB, let's go to Blackboard real quick. Because what I'm about to do is draw it in, or actually my mail would be probably a better place to go. Okay. It may not make sense what I'm talking about, but oh, sure, I don't care. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Now I want to go up here to Outlook. Oh, come on. What? When you went there. Remove things. Class notebooks. I want to manage my notebooks. I want to look at my notebooks. This is statics, right? There we go. What? I just want to look at them. Open. Okay, there we go. Is this thing saving? At that address. Is it saving it? Yes. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't writing on top of the application and not in it, but it looks like it's saving it. It looks like I'm actually working in the document. So, okay, so let's solve this one real quick. So F is equal to, I'm just rewriting the same thing, and there's a reason I'm sort of listing it, plus, get back, let's see, 9J plus 3K. So I got that. Over to the left somewhere, I'm going to draw a vector. It goes like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list it as, say, R. R is equal to, and it looks like it goes to, oops, am I looking at that right? Nope, that is wrong. It goes back minus 1I. It goes in the Y plus 2J, and it goes down. Did I do that right? Okay, so it goes back along the X, out along the Y, and down along the Z. Does that make sense? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to list it right up under here. Minus 1I plus 2J. Tell me if I did that wrong. Minus 2K. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dot them. R dot F equal to minus 6 and minus 1 just gives me 6. Plus 9 times 2 gives me 18. This is a weird way of doing it. 3 and 2, but I'm doing like that, gives me minus 6. So I get 18. Now I want to find the length of F equals 2 and the length of R equals 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something. How many people are okay with MATLAB? I mean, are y'all okay? So if I go in here, I want to clear the screen. So if you're okay with it and you would be fine doing this way, I'm going to list F in an interesting way. I think I've done it before. Can you even see that? Is that, I don't know how to make the defaults. Properties, font. How about 24? Is that a little easier to read? I really don't need a lot of length. How about that? Is that easier to see? Okay, so F is nothing more than -6, 9, and 3. There it is. So R is -1, 2, -2. I'll do this. Norm of F, 11 points. So the length of F, oops, go away, is 11.225. That should be the same thing as the square root of whatever squared plus whatever squared plus whatever squared. The length of R, okay, why didn't I come up? Length of R is the same thing as the norm of R, which is 3. Okay, so think about that. 2 squares 4, another 4 is 8, and then one more is 9. That's it. So, okay, so that makes sense. So now if I want to know the cosine of the angle between them, or no, I'm sorry, I want to know the angle between them, but the cosine is equal to what? Now, if you run back to the book, or we could not run back to the book, it's equal, you know, here. The dot product of two vectors is equal to the length times the cosine of the angle between them. So I take this, move it under there, which says I take the dot product over 11.225 times 3, and that should give me the angle. Does that make sense? So if I want to, I can just come back to MATLAB and I can do something really strange. Arc cosine in degrees of the dot product of F with R divided by the norm of F divided by the norm of R. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just take a look at what this is. Plus, I need to get up and walk around occasionally. So I'm taking this, the dot product. This is how you would do it in MATLAB or Octave. Dot of these two vectors. This should give me 18. This one should give me 3. And this one should give me 11.225. And if I hit enter, I get 57.68 degrees. Okay. Either 6.8 or 6.68. 6.88. Oh, they're leaving early. They're not getting their money's worth. They paid for that. So there's your angle. Now, let me go back and poke around on each one of these, and let's verify that's exactly. Okay, so let's just copy. Wait, how do I do this? Do I do, maybe I do a Control-C and a Control-V. Okay, let's check the dot product. 18, that's what we got. That was our dot product. Let's do the norm of F. Copy, paste. 11.225, that's what we got earlier. And then the norm of R, copy and paste. So we're just verifying. So in fact, those are, so with that one statement, any vector, you know, you can just list it in a Octave or MATLAB that way, and it'll do it. And what's cool about this, I mean, we're not there yet, but here I'll just do it across F and R. We can take a cross product just like that. And so what's cool, when we get to moments, I use this a lot because instead of sitting around and scratching on the page, you just type it in. It gives you so it can send you through your work real quick if you just rely on dot, norm, and cross a lot of times. So now, unfortunately, or first I'll say fortunately, when you're doing your homework, you can bust out MATLAB or whatever and start using it. I'm fine with it. When it comes to the lecture, I mean, to the test, that's not going to help you that much. However, I will try my best to mitigate that so that it's not awful when it comes to these kind of things. There's ways to make a test so that it's not awful like that. So in fact, I mean, you just go through these things, and we're 140. We got to go 10 more minutes. You got to get your money's worth here. You paid hot dollar for this. And increasingly, every year, it seems to be more. Okay, wait a minute. So which one should we do next? Okay, let's see if there's something that can be done in 10 minutes. Here's a good example of one in which you would be interested in what the force would be acting along a perpendicular line to AO. Well, yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah. Well, not so much. I thought that they were going to be interested in the twist around the hinge, but maybe not. Let's find something else that, I don't know. I guess it's just as good as any other problem. So let's just do that one. Can't find anything better or worse. Determine the magnitudes and the components. Let's make a new page. Drop the picture. Okay, for some reason it does that. Okay, the 56. Okay, determine the magnitude of the components of the force, the 56 Newton force acting along and perpendicular to line AO, that blue line in there. First of all, I got to find the components. So what's going to happen is, you know, I can find that in about 9 minutes, but then we'll wrap it up on next time and do the rest. So what I need to do is I need to find a vector from here, an R vector, all the way from here to here, right? So if I find this R vector, and then from that I find the unit vector, I got it, right? Does that make sense? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vector RA. Now it looks like I go minus 1.5 I plus 3J plus K. Okay, so now let me draw a vector RD. And that's a pretty easy one. That's straight up. RD is nothing more than 2K, right? So this vector, okay, here, let me hit some erasing here. So this vector, if this is RA and this is RD, this is a vector that points to D originating from A. It's RD minus RA. Okay. So RD minus RA. You know what? I should have done it this way. RD is equal to 2K. I'm sort of lining it up. Now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to subtract this number, which is 0 plus 0J. Does that make sense? So I'm subtracting this number from this number. So RD relative to A would be 1.5A minus 3J plus 1K. Okay, is that right? Did I do that right? I think I did. Now I'm going to use a crutch. That crutch is called MATLAB, Octave, whatever you want to call it. So what I'm going to do is clear, okay, clear everything. Then I'm going to just call it RDA equals to 1.5. Oops, got to put the brackets. 1.5 minus 3 and 1. So if I want to make this a unit vector, I would call it U d to a would equal to r d to a divided by the norm of RDA. So there's my vector, which is a unit vector pointing in that direction. Okay. And okay, so my unit vector d to a is equal to 0.42857, 0.42857 I keep wanting to use touch screen, minus 0.85714 5714J 28571 plus 2.2, okay, I forgot, 28557K. How would I find my force as a vector? When I multiplied just 56 times this UD to A, because that vector and the force vector, these two vectors are all going in the same direction. So in essence, what I've done is I've come in and I've found the base vector there. So you multiply this vector times 56, here, UDA, okay, force equal 56 times UD to A. Look at that, 24, 48, 16. This is what I'm talking about, where they what was it, 16K? This is what I was talking about before, when they monkey with this. There's no way this is going to end up like this. I mean, that doesn't make sense. But if you work real hard on the problem, I bet you the bottom number was the square root of 56 or something like that. So it ends up that these are integers. So what we'll do next time is we'll dot this along that line AO, which is kind of already done. I've got that vector kind of right here. And then we'll dot it with that one, and we get a component in that direction and then a perpendicular one. Is this sort of making sense? I mean, okay, so let me tell you a little story. I had a guy in here about 3 years ago. He was kind of a unique individual, had all sorts of troubles, you know, broke his arm, still came to class, did everything, and he scored 100 on the first test. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's kind of interesting. So I asked him one time, are you doing extra problems or something? What are you doing? He said he was working every single problem that had an answer in the back of the book. And, you know, he showed me the stuff. Now, he had scratched around on a lot of it. But what happened is when it came to test time, he had already, you know, what you find if you do that is the first 2 or 3 problems are really annoying. And then the third one, not so much. Then the fourth one, by the time you reach the 5th one, you're working it in about 4 or 5 minutes. But what you're doing on that 5th and 6th and 7th problem is it's just like bang, 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 bang. And then by the time you did it, the 8th problem, you figured it out. So what he was doing is he would do that and see the alterations, and he could see the different things pretty quick. But he had to spend a little time doing that. So I would suggest, I mean, I know I gave you a set. As a matter of fact, I gave you 7 sets, didn't I? Gave you 7, 8 points apiece. And those are problems that, I mean, you might want to go do those first, but then just flip open the book and look at it. Besides, those all came somewhere inside buried in the book. So you can sit and work them, work all that you feel like you have time for, but realize that after you do a section, you work a few of them. If you decide to add another one on, usually it doesn't take a lot of time. The other thing too is if you start working them and you're like, man, I'm just having a brain freeze here, just leap to the next one. Because what you'll find is you might try to go do 2 of them, give yourself a certain amount of time, say 10 minutes or something, to see if you can see or visualize it. You skip over 2 or 3. By the time you hit the 3rd one and you're looking at it for 10 minutes, you're like, oh, I get it. You work that one. Then you go work another one. Then you go back to the one that froze your brain and you realize, oh, yeah, you see it, and you can work right through those things real quick. So I would say, coming to class and watching me is okay. I mean, I hope it's useful, but what's going to solidify it in your head is when you go work a few of them. So I know I set those things due a while away, but go dig at them. I mean, because I just keep going section by section. I mean, and I'll go back at some point in about a week and pull out the assignment and we'll poke at that assignment. So, but don't hesitate to just start working. Matter of fact, I mean, let me formalize a process, but if I could figure out if you were willing to work and hack up a few things, I might be willing to give you a point or 2 extra over time for hacking up, for hacking at them early on. So, but that's the only way to get this stuff. I mean, I hope I'm useful, but I'm kind of not ornamental at all. So, just go at it and see what you can get done.